Live from Orlando, Florida, you're listening to the Orlando Magic HQ podcast, the voice of Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
What's up, Magic fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Orlando Magic HQ podcast, brought to you by the Believe Podcast Network and Bet Online. I'm your host, Anthony, and if you can't tell already, Al is not in today. And filling in for Al is our man, Steven, from the Close-Up. What's up, Steven?
Yo, what's going on, Anthony? I am psyched to be here. Al, I hope you are having a good work trip. Appreciate you letting me fill in. I got some big shoes to fill in, but I'm psyched to get into it, man. It's going to be a fun show. Yeah, man. Al got some fancy dinner. They flew him out somewhere in the United States. They flew him out, and he couldn't make it on trade deadline. You believe he had to work all day on trade deadline? That's crazy. It's probably It's probably why nothing happened, right? Because he had to work all day. He had to work all day. Now he's probably sitting back at the hotel or restaurant having filet mignon and like some nice whiskey or something. Like,
yep, nice old
go
fashioned.
do you enjoy yourself.
Must be nice. He called out. How do you call out on the podcast and not call out for the work? His priorities are all messed up. That's what it is.
Got to flip out. You got to flip it around. I had a personal friend before we get into the show. A close friend of mine literally called out of work for the day because he knew he just wasn't going to get anything done. I sat in the office of my boss's office and didn't do anything for 2 hours.
That's terrible. Hopefully they don't listen to the show because you just outed yourself completely. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to say that I was super productive today. I didn't pay attention to no Magic news, nothing. I focused. I knew what my priorities were. But man, if you don't know, Al spends a good amount of time during the week kind of getting the agenda together for the podcast and make sure that we're squared away. He does a great job. But since he isn't here, we're just going to throw all that out the window. I'm really sorry, Al. He's going to hear it. He's going to be like, damn, I spent so much time on it. We're going to throw it out, and we're going to jump right into the NBA trade deadline and kind of get our thoughts and our perspective from what didn't go down today. But before we get into it, just a quick word from our sponsors. The big game is finally here. Bet Online is your number one source for playoff football odds, stats, trends, and lines. With everything from point spreads to hundreds of player performance props, with dozens of odds, props, and info on hundreds of sports events, politics, and entertainment, you can access the world's best wagering information anytime from desktop or your mobile devices. Head to Bet Online today to stay updated on all the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. So, Steven, talk to me. NBA trade deadline. It's cool. If you haven't heard, we hosted a Spaces with Steven, Stanley, and Bryce. You guys killed it today. Had a lot of great participants and speakers from 1:30 to about 3:30. If you hadn't had a chance to listen to everyone's reaction that came up there, you are able to listen to the playback on Twitter, on X, whatever it is that you call that platform now. But you are able to go back and listen to it. But Steven, the Magic didn't do anything. There was a lot of talks, man. We've heard a lot of the rumors. We heard about a lot of the names. Could the Magic be interested in Chris Paul? Could the Magic be interested in Kyle Lowry? We heard Tyus Jones. We heard Buddy Hield. We heard a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's really surprised. I think the perspective that we've got across the fan base is that people are they're disappointed. People were expecting something. Even big names from the national media, they're a little confused as to why the Magic didn't do anything. Nonetheless, Magic, they decided this is the team that we're going to run with, whatever those reasons may be. What are your thoughts? Are you okay with the Magic not doing anything, sticking to their guns, sticking with what they have already, and then just kind of rolling with it?
Man, that's a great question. First off, I was wrong. I was wrong this year. I thought the Magic were going to do a move. I didn't think they were going to do a sexy move, a big splashy move. But I thought there was going to be at least something because every year since the front office has joined this team, I think it's since 2016, 17, something like that. Yep. They've done a move every single trade deadline. So I figured we were going to be in line for some marginal move that, maybe opened up space for another player to play or brought in something. So I thought that's what I thought was going to happen, and we didn't get anything. So that was a little surprising because it kind of broke the trend of doing something every single deadline. Am I sad we didn't do anything? I'd say I'm like a little bummed. It would have been nice to just have like a little excitement, even if it was just like simply getting a different veteran on the bench in place of like Chumo KK, or moving Gary Harris to open up more minutes for Anthony Black, and just little things like that. I didn't think anything splashy was going to happen. I think there's a couple things, man, when we really look at all this, outside of like my personal excitement for just wanting something new and fresh to be on this roster. I look at a lot of the names that we were actually tied to, right? We were never really tied to Buddy Hield, but we were like, people attached us a little bit to Malcolm Brogdon, to Tyus Jones, to Chris Paul, to Kyle Lowry, to a bunch of point guards, right? Deontay Murray, even him a little bit, right? Or at least we all thought we might be a little bit into it. None of those guys got moved, right? So what that tells me is those teams were probably asking way too much. And our front office was like, you know what? We're not going to overpay. We're not going to do something that we really shouldn't. And we can also just like address a little bit better with a little bit more long-term clarity this offseason. So it's bummer. It's sad. I wish there was something exciting for us to talk about right now, but at the same point, I'm thankful we don't have something bad and we didn't overpay for something gnarly. And that, just it kind of just shows that other teams also didn't want to go after whatever these asking prices were for like Tyus Jones and Malcolm Brogdon, because they're obviously just outrageous because they're still on those teams. They haven't moved. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it, like almost thankful. But also a little bummed. Like, who doesn't like in talking about it? This episode would be awesome if we were talking about Malcolm Brogdon on the Magic right now and like getting reactions to that. But instead, we're talking about continuing to run the same path, and it's not nearly as sexy as a conversation. But it's. I think it's okay. I think it's okay that we're in this place. What about you, man? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, if anyone's upset, if anyone's disappointed, I think everyone has a right to feel that way. Like it's trade deadline. This is the NBA. This is what people are excited about. Like, people love trades.
Love transactions.
Yeah, they love transactions. That's part of the sexiest thing about NBA basketball, because NBA is all year long. Off season is an exciting time for NBA basketball. It just is. And I think that people really wanted to move. First and foremost, because it's a trade deadline. Nobody wants. It's kind of like being a kid and you see all your friends go outside and they're playing, but you're stuck in the house and you can't go outside and play, right? All these teams, they're making a bunch of trades and we're stuck in the house and we're not allowed to go outside and play with the rest of the kids. That's pretty much what's happening, right? We made 0 moves. And yes, the Magic have a lot of issues that we were hoping that they would address. It didn't happen.
At least one of them.
Yeah, at least anything, right? Personally, I think that people would have been happy. Like, an example, if we would have traded for Tyus Jones, like, if we're being honest, Tyus Jones is not going to move the needle like that. Like, he's just not. He's not going to do that. I think, in my opinion, the minute that I saw Buddy Hield off the board, it was like, Like, for me, yeah, you could have traded for Malcolm Brogdon. Yeah, you could have done different things. It didn't happen, right? And I think that, again, it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to be upset. The Magic are going to be big players in the offseason. Like, that's just happening, right? And I think that for me, when you talk about what the goals are for this season, we have the players, we have the pieces to reach that goal. And I think that the goal has shifted, right? In the beginning of the season, it was playing. The Magic started playing really good basketball. And although we weren't healthy, we were still winning games, and the goalposts changed. And then it went from playing to now playoffs. Now we're expecting to make the playoffs. And with the team that we have, if we can stay healthy, that's still in sight. That's not going to change. But with that said, it doesn't mean that the Magic won't make any changes or adjustments. You still got players out that could be potential candidates on the buyout market. I want to throw a couple names at you, and then you just give me your yes or no. Right? Tell me what you feel. If it's an immediate yes, if it's immediate no, or stand pat. So obviously the name that we heard connected to the Magic from the national media, first and foremost, Kyle Lowry. Yes or no? Potential. He hasn't been bought out yet, but potential buyout candidate. Is that something that you think that the Magic could fall into? And then if you think that they could, is that something you would even want?
I feel like Kyle would want to go to like a true contender. Go sign with the Suns. I don't think we're a strong enough playoff team for him to really consider us. But if he did want to, yeah, I would entertain it, right? If we like cut Chuma off the roster, and that was our open roster spot, like yeah, I'd entertain it. I know Magic fans hate him. I sort of hate him too, but he'd be a nice veteran presence that has a ton of playoff experience. If he's buying in and the rest of the team's buying in with him, I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, I think people are still upset at him for injuring Aaron Gordon.
Bro, his ass
Rightfully
hurt
so.
Hurt our guy in the middle of the playoffs. I don't love Kyle Lowry, but I think he would help this team.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily want it to happen. Like if we didn't do anything in the trade deadline, I'm cool with keeping it as is. Like Anthony Black only played 3 minutes today in that Spurs game. Like you have these guys that are anything could change, and then we that's a great thing about this team is that this team is really really deep, and there's not enough minutes to go around, right? So in the event that something were to happen, someone can step up. You have someone like Kyle Lowry that I agree with you. I don't. Why would he want to join the Magic?
Yeah.
Right. So that makes sense. All right, the next one. This one was a little surprising, just because we know that the Pistons are a dumpster fire. They made a lot of questionable things. The Knicks got really really good. Like the Knicks are solid.
Yeah.
The Knicks got better, and the Pistons helped a lot with that. But they ended up making the decision of cutting Killian Hayes. Killian Hayes, if you don't know, is a local kid from Central Florida. Is that something that interests you?
No.
Killian Hayes, who has completely it's kind of crazy that literally they drop him, right? But yet he was starting over Jaden Ivey for a very, very long time. So the fact that they dropped him is kind of concerning. But is that someone that would interest you at all?
No, sir. I have no desire to have Killian Hayes on this team. The type of veterans or the type of players I would look at from this buyout market, and we can keep going down the list, but I don't want projects to like reclaim and reshape into this.
Yeah, I think we're past that.
We have enough of that on our team.
Yeah, especially if you got Jet Howard still baking in the oven. Like we're still getting him ready to be able to play with the big boys. So you're absolutely right. There's not enough effort to go around.
Yeah, we want to give Anthony Black those minutes,
Yeah. So another player that it's pretty interesting. We know that the area of opportunity, the challenge for the Magic is shooting, and you have a player like Joe Harris that's out there as well. Is that somebody that you think that, hey, if the Magic really wanted to bring somebody off the bench that could be that can bring his level of shooting, does that pique your interest?
I don't hate Joe Harris as an idea. I don't know if I would cut Gary Harris to bring in Joe Harris. I think I would still try and let go of like Chuma to bring in that roster spot if Chuma's someone they really don't want to bring on next year. I think I would consider that. You have two Harrises. If Harris starts like doing real, if the new Harris, sorry, what's his first name again? I'm spacing. If help me out here. What's his first name again?
Gary?
No, the other Harris.
Joe.
Thank you. If Joe Harris was really crushing it in practice and like beat out Gary Harris, sure. Yeah, I'm all about it. Like low impact, low risk. But I don't think I'm cutting the two-way player of Gary Harris to bring in Joe Harris. That I'm still cutting probably Chuma to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would be for it because we've seen what he's able to do. Yeah, he might have fallen off a bit. He's only played 16 games this season, but he's still a career averaging above 40% from the 3-point line. And listen, just think about the marketing that you're able to do. If you just have a bunch of Joes on your team that
Bunch
can
of
shoot the
Joes
ball,
and a bunch of
Joe,
Harrises.
that's it. That's it. Joes and Harris, give him the rock, let him shoot behind the 3-point line. He'll be somebody that I would be open to. But I don't think, like, I can't see the Magic doing it at this point. I think they're gonna just ride it out with what they have. The team is finally healthy, and I think that for the most part, when we talk about the people in Central Florida, in Orlando, there's nobody more excited about the outcome of today than the players. And you saw that in today's game. Like, everyone seemed happier than usual. Like, we already have a good group that's really happy to play basketball with each other. There's good team chemistry. But everyone was happy that they made it through, even if they don't talk about it. Jonathan Isaac in his interview was talking about he didn't even know that today was a day for the trade deadline.
Sure, Jonathan.
Yeah, right. Where there's no way that this team does not have a group chat and they're all not talking about this. Like, that today is the NBA trade deadline. But I'm good with them not making a decision. I was really disappointed earlier today. I'm a lot calmer now. Magic get a win against the San Antonio Spurs, which really isn't something to be too excited about. Like, that's a team that you should be beating. But I think that if anyone is feeling any type of way, you have a right to do so. I understand your frustrations. I understand why you're upset, but something to highlight, like, this is going to be a successful season. The team has already won. They've already exceeded everyone's expectations. Now it's just a matter of getting the job done as we go into the second half of the season. Do you see any challenges outside of what we know, which we know that the Magic struggle from behind the 3-point line? We know that Markel Fultz is slowly working his way back. But when it comes to finishing out the season now and making it to the playoffs, we didn't add anyone. There's still a chance that we might. But what do you think is in the way of the Magic making it to the playoffs?
Man, I think it's just themselves right now, right? Like we had a great game tonight versus the Spurs. Where good energy, played hard, defended hard. There was a little bit of like sloppiness within the game here and there. But overall, like, I think it's just the Magic being in their own way, having too many nights where they come out flat footed, like they did against Miami, end of a road trip. But, it's, if they fall into that rut where they just are complacent and they're not giving 100% effort every single game, then that's going to cause a downward spiral, like we've seen through certain segments throughout the year. We can't go on like another really big long 2-3 week losing streak where we go like 3 out of 12. We gotta stay pretty much 500 or better the rest of the year, and that's going to take like just showing up to every game and every quarter, giving it your all. I'm sure there's going to be a couple more games here and there where they're just don't have it that night, and it's not a competition. But as long as that trend doesn't happen multiple games in a row, and those games are few and far in between, that's what I think is going to stop us. Because when we play top five defense, we can beat any game. We can be in any game, and we can beat any team. And we know Paolo is getting a lot better at closing games. Franz is starting to find his rhythm. So that's sort of how I'm looking at that question. And what do you think, man?
So as I look at the standings, right, the Magic currently sit eighth seed in the East, 28 and 24. We're tied with the Miami Heat for that 7th to 8th spot. You got the Pacers, who are one game ahead of us, followed by the Sixers. Sixers are at 30 and 20. They're dealing with their injuries with Joel Embiid. I see them falling. I see us catching up. And then you look
Yep.
behind us, we got the Bulls, where we're 8 games ahead of the Bulls. They didn't do nothing, absolutely nothing during this
So
trade
surprised.
deadline. I
So
really thought that was going to be a dumpster fire, and they decided to stand pat. I don't know what they're doing. If I was a Chicago Bulls fan, I would be pissed.
be
And
so
then the
confused.
Hawks ended up doing the exact same thing. They really didn't make any moves. They decided to keep DeJounte Murray. Then you look at Brooklyn, who they're for whatever reason we struggle against them, and everyone else just they annihilate them. Then you got the Raptors, Hornets, Wizards, Pistons. I like where the Magic are at.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely opportunity for us to move on. move up. I would love a scenario where we didn't have to do the play-in. But I think that as the Magic continue to get the ball, like they're still working, they're still learning each other, right? Because you're still bringing in Wendell and Markel Fultz from their injuries, and it's still taking them a bit to get acclimated with everyone else, especially Markel. And I think that as time goes on, we're going to see more and more of that, you know, good basketball on the floor, and I think that's going to help us out. It's going to go a long way. So I like our position. I like where we're at. Miami Heat, they obviously got better with adding Terry Rozier. So I'm interested to see how that goes. And then, Tyrese Halliburton, he's been dealing with his injuries. Can he stay healthy the rest of the season? So the great thing, the awesome thing is that as we're in the midway point of the season, things could really go any way. Like we've dealt with our injuries early on. Other teams, there's no guarantee here. Like anything can happen with any of these teams in front of us. So I'm with you. I think the Magic, we need to focus on us. We need to stay healthy, stay the course, and we need to continue, shooting the basketball at least decently well. Like we need to be able to find, that trigger point where we can find success in that space.
I'm really interested to see what happens with the 76ers and how long is Embiid going to be out. We know it's probably going to be at least a month ish, 6, 7, 8 weeks probably. Um, Tyrese Maxey, incredible player, but he is now the best player on that team. It is, and they got better. They got Buddy Hield today, and I think they had another move that might have made him a little bit better as well. But I don't know. Like we could catch them. They're only 2 games ahead of us right now. They have well, they haven't played as many games as us. They're 30-20. We're 28-24. But they easily could be caught up to if they start going on a little bit of a losing streak here. Indiana, they haven't really found their groove yet. You're right. Tyrese has been in and out with injuries, and Siakam is, he's there, but they're still trying to find their rhythm there. Miami, they're on a downward spiral, but they're going to figure things out. So I potentially think we could catch the Pacers. And I think we potentially could catch the 76ers. Miami, they got better. So I think we're kind of neck and neck with them going hopefully upwards in the standings. And yeah, could we get in that 6th spot? Could we potentially at least not drop any further than 7th? And versus the Hawks or the Bulls or whoever's going to end up in that 10th spot and just beat them once and move on to the playoffs. So I'm liking where we're at too, man. I agree with you a lot with that. I think we're in a really good position to be in the play-in or in the playoffs, and if we're in the play-in, get into the playoffs.
Yeah, man. Listen, I wish that there was more to talk about when it comes to the NBA trade deadline. I mean, that's it, man. The Magic,
That's it.
we didn't do anything, and that's okay. The worst thing that could happen is we trade for someone that messes up the chemistry of the team. We trade for someone that derails us from our mission of making the playoffs. Obviously, we know that our front office, they're a very savvy group, so I don't believe that they would put us in the position. The way that I view it is, let's be honest, no matter how upset anyone may be, the front office is not sitting on their ass. They're just not. They're
No,
taking calls. They're having conversations. And you brought up a really good point during the spaces where you talked about like some of the deals that were made that people believe that the Magic might make. There may not have been an offer for us, right? There may have been an offer for someone else based on relationships, based on a million different things. And I agree with you 100%. Some things just don't fall for certain teams, and a lot of it has to do with relationships. But I don't believe that it was a deal. There was either not a good enough deal that the Magic felt like was fair, or there wasn't one that they liked, or they really do believe in the group that they have as long as we can stay healthy. And I think that although it might be a risky move, it's a move that they decide to make, and we just have to accept it, eat it, move on, and keep going. That's it.
and I want to add on to that too, man, because it's like we know this front office said a few things. Like we know they have a couple of values right now. They really like a flexible cap sheet, right? So they didn't want to bring on someone, I'm assuming like Tyus Jones, who or could have been Gary Trent Jr. or even Buddy Hield, right? Like a player that's going to be a free agent this summer, and then have to pay them another contract, right? I just don't think they were ready to say we're trading for this guy and we're going to give them another contract. And I don't think if they don't fully believe they want to give that player another contract, then it doesn't make sense to go rent them out right now. They'd probably rather retain whatever draft capital it would have been to get that player and just have that as more ammo this summer. And that allows them to continue to have flexibility there. There were a couple of players I think that would have allowed us to still have flexibility there, but those types of players are still on the teams that didn't, like Malcolm Brogdon, like that player is still on his roster. Like he didn't get traded at all. So it's like you got to think of it that way. And then to bring it back to the point that you mentioned that I mentioned is like we know certain teams just only want to work with certain people. Like Leon Rose from the Knicks did not want to deal with any clutch players whatsoever. Until I think maybe even now, but like, it took Rich Paul going to New York just a couple of weeks ago to be like, dude, we got to bury this hatchet. Like you can hate me, but please stop hating my players on my agency. Right. They're going to want at some point, there's going to be someone on Clutch Sports that wants to play in New York City. So it's like, and they might want them. So, there's weird random agendas like that throughout the league and stuff like that. And like a GM doing another one of their buddy GMs a favor and saying like, yeah, I'm going to take your deal over the Magic's deal because I want to like help you because I know you've helped me in the past, or I want you to help me in the future kind of stuff. So there's all sorts of random politics that we don't know about. But man, I guarantee John and Anthony were on the phone, and they were talking to people probably right up until the very last minute, seeing if anything was going to make sense for this team going forward.
Yeah, and that's just where the NBA is at, man. And I think that the Magic, again, we didn't make a bad deal, and at the very least, you can hang your hat on that. We finish off the second half of the season, then we're off into the off season where the Magic are expected to be pretty big players. And if you're out there and Buddy Hield, if you're like me and you really wanted Buddy Hield on your roster, man, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. And I mean, obviously, if he doesn't re-sign with the Sixers or whatever case may be, it's there's still an opportunity. And like you said, Tyus Jones didn't go anywhere. Malcolm Brogdon didn't go anywhere. They didn't make a deal with anybody. And this is after hearing numerous different rumors from different teams. It just didn't happen. So,
we weren't
no
the only
deal.
team connected to those players either.
What's that?
We weren't the only team connected to those players either. So
yeah, they were connected to at least 4 or 5 different teams, and it just
they must have had
happen.
some high asking prices.
Yeah. So from this point, right, the Magic have a few games before the All-Star break. They got Saturday. So we just finished up San Antonio Spurs. We got Saturday against the Bulls. Tuesday against OKC, where they're doing Shaq's retirement jersey after the game, and then Wednesday versus the Knicks. I kind of hate the fact that they're doing the retirement jersey after OKC. OKC is a tough game. Kind of killed the flame. Like if we win, amazing, but if we lose, it's kind of like, it kind of kills the vibe a bit.
Bro, and Shaq's on that announcing crew too. It's the TNT crew that he is. Yeah, he's going to be on that crew, which will be cool. But that's going to be a tough game. I mean, OKC is not an easy feat. They're booming hot in the Western Conference right now, playing some really good basketball, and that is not going to be an easy matchup. Thankfully, it's a home game. But yeah, that's like a tough night to have a celebration because if we lose, hopefully if we do lose, it's at least competitive and like down to the wire. And Paolo and Franz go off and but I mean, ideally we spank that ass and we're just winning.
I swear I'm going to be listening to every single word from Shaquille O'Neal. If this man says anything negative on that broadcast, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it because we are literally trying our best to be able to have like this good pathway of rebuilding a relationship. So this man better be talking nothing but positivity and flowers about our Orlando Magic because we're putting your jersey in the rafters, man. At the very least, you can give us that. At the very least, on our one and only game on national television, you can at least give us that.
Yes, sir. No, man. I think I mean it's gonna be fun, man, because like we got national television game there, the jersey retirement too, and then we have one more game versus the Knicks on the 14th, the very next night, and then it's All Star break, and we get to watch Paolo and but I'm just teeing it up. Then we go into All Star break with some other really exciting things, right? I'll let you take over this transition, but it's gonna be a fun little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So perfect segue. So it was announced that Paolo Banchero is going to be participating in the skills challenge. And it's kind of funny the way that they adjusted these teams, man, how they put these teams together. So the first team, just to kind of break it down if you didn't get a chance to see it, the first team is the team top picks. So former number one picks in the NBA. You got Paolo Banchero, Anthony Edwards, and Victor Wembanyama on one team, followed by the home team of Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, and then Miles Turner. And then the kind of team all-stars with Scotty Barnes, Tyrese Maxey, and Trey Young. So first and foremost, what are your thoughts on Paolo Banchero and the skills challenge, and teaming up with the number one picks? And then talk to me about why they thought adding some replacements in Scotty Barnes and Trey Young for Team All Stars was a good idea.
I'm laughing just because you called them almost all stars. um, no, man, to calm my laughs down.
Listen, okay, wait. Before you even answer that question, all right, does it feel the same? Does it feel the same if
No,
you weren't selected for the original group, the first cast, and you're only in it for the injuries?
I mean,
Does it count?
it
Do you still feel pride in that?
you're still an all-star, but there is there's levels to this, right? And you are definitely not on the same level as the ones that are getting voted in by the coaches, just like the ones getting voted in by the coaches are not on the same level as the starters. No disrespect to Paolo, he will get there one day, but there's levels to this, right? You know, Paolo's going to play like 10 minutes compared to some of these other guys that'll play 15 plus minutes in the All-Star game, you know. And it's just, you know, these guys like Scotty, like the injury replacements and stuff like that, the almost all stars, like I'm sure they're happy to be there. I'm sure they're honored that their name got called that way. But do they feel some type of way about it? Absolutely. I think who was it? Was Anthony Edwards injury replacement his first All Star? It was someone on the West that was like in the last year or two that was an injury replacement, and they said, you know what, it meant more the second time when they were voted in,
Right.
right? And then the first time. So it's yeah, man. I think it does mean a little bit more when you are not an injury replacement.
Yeah, man. Because listen, I know that when they announce the reserves for the All Star, Paulo Banquero's name was the last one to be named. But man, to me, if Paulo Banquero's name wasn't named and he's only making it in because Julius Randle got injured, it wouldn't have the same feeling for me as just as a viewer, as a consumer. I just wouldn't be able to accept it the same way, right? So Scotty Barnes making it in, Trey Young, in my opinion, he's an all-star. You can debate with your moms. He should have been in there. He wasn't. It is what it is. But Scotty Barnes, in my opinion, I still got people in my mentions. Like I got responded to a tweet from 2021, right? 2021? Maybe yes, maybe no. 2021 talking about Scotty Barnes in comparison with Jalen Suggs. Like the fight that we have, the beef that we have with Raptors fans over the Jalen Suggs and Scotty Barnes is just never gonna die out. It's just not. But I do
It's
find it
evolving
funny.
too.
What's that?
It's evolving too. First it was
Yeah.
Scotty, first it was Suggs, then it transitioned to Franz, and now it's transitioned
Yep.
to Paulo.
It's
They just don't
revolving.
like us.
It's revolving. But man, I'm expecting for Paolo, Anthony, and Victor to dominate. Like I think
Yes.
that those three are, they're number one picks for a reason, and I think that they're gonna do well, man. But I
I
will
agree.
say, if it's not us, if it's not team number one pick in the draft, I do think that Scotty Barnes, Tyrese, and Trey has it over Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are all, as much as we joke about them, they're all very skilled ball handlers, skilled passers. I think that's going to be a really fun team and probably our stiffest competition over the home team with Miles Turner in it. No disrespect to Miles Turner, but he's not the ball handler and passer, and that's kind of like you need those skills when it comes to the skill challenge.
Yeah. Now let me ask you: does it feel different for you with Paolo making it in? He's representing the Magic in the skills challenge, representing the Magic in the All Star game. But does it feel different with Paolo than it did when, let's say, Nicola made it in?
Yeah, man. I mean, I was really psyched for Vooch to make it those years. I thought he earned it, particularly that first year. He was playing amazing that year. The team was winning that year. But I think he was like 28, 29 when he made it, something like that. And we have a all-star who's 21. So it's like he's not even at his peak where Vooch made it at his peak. And we kind of all knew like the writing was on the wall with this team. Like it was not going to last another. It kind of was maxing out, and we kind of knew they had to do some big changes for it to get to the next step. And with this, we know it's just getting started, right?
Yep.
And for him to be the youngest all-star that's on the entire thing, not including the fake all-stars, the injury replacements with Scotty Barnes, but like the real all-stars. He's the youngest one out of all of them by like 2 or 3 seasons. I think the next youngest is Anthony Edwards, and then it jumps to a bunch of dudes in their like mid to late 20s and 30s. And it's just like it means a lot, like no one else in his draft class got selected. No one else in the class before him got selected or after him. So it's like the next closest with Anthony Edwards. And so I think it does mean a lot, and it shows how truly dominant he's been in that the coaches, even because like when he got voted in, like the Magic had won a couple more games, but we had kind of just slowly starting to get out of that like 2-week, 3-week slump of just slodge with this Magic team. And even Paolo had a couple weird games back then too. So it's like, yeah, man, it does mean a lot, and I'm damn proud of him. And it just shows that we got a really bright future ahead of us. What about you?
Yeah, man, super exciting. Like again, I was super excited when Vooch made it in. And I talked about this with Al in the last episode that with you also because you were on there. But when we found out that Paulo won it, like there was a lot of internal excitement to another like I felt like we won the number 1 draft pick all over again. Like it was that level of excitement. So I'm really happy for Paulo, man, because this is where things change, right? We talked about how we feel like this is going to impact us from a national level, right? We talked about how, just from a voting perspective, from the fans, we saw that there was a want, a need, a recognition from fan base, not just from Orlando, but from everywhere, from a national standpoint, that people also believe that Paolo Banchero should be there, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah, man, super excited. It does feel different, and we know that he's going to represent the Magic well, which is the exciting part. Now, I'll be honest with you, Paolo Banchero is not the only one representing the Orlando Magic, or should I say, the Magic at All Star Weekend. Mac McClung, man. So,
Mac is
want your
back.
perspective. So, a couple things. Uh, Obviously, Magic related, and then not Magic related. First and foremost, Matt McClung, who is not signed on the Orlando Magic roster. He's signed under
Yet.
Osceola Magic. Do you think that he's going to end up uh, rocking the Osceola Magic jersey? Like, so last year he was right. He had a contract with the Sixers,
Yeah.
right?
They gave him a
Um,
two-way.
yes, they gave him a 2-way right before the finish line, right? This will be the first time that they have like a G League participant, right? If he doesn't sign with the Magic. So I guess a couple things. If he does sign with the Magic on a 2-way, who gets cut? And then how excited are you to see him represent the Magic? The Magic having a player represented in the slam dunk contest is kind of starting to become more tradition than anything. We got a lot of participants over our years, but
Gotta get some
who
more
do you
trophies.
yeah, I know. Telling us, man, they got us in debt. We need some of that. But what are your thoughts? Do you think
Man,
he has a chance? He's obviously going against. It was announced Jalen Brown, Jaime Jaquez, and Jacob Toppin.
Did Jalen Brown actually commit? I know he
He,
was like
yep.
thinking about it. He actually, dude, that's awesome. Heck
Yeah,
yeah,
man. It's
so
so
cool.
it's official, and it's funny because I kind of spoke too early when I heard that it was, Jacob Toppin. He signed. He has a two-way with the Knicks, and I'm just like, man, this slam dunk contest is starting to turn into just, a G League slam dunk contest. And
Yeah,
then immediately after I read Jalen Brown, I'm like, oh, okay, that's
that's
awesome
awesome. Yeah,
because it's
very
been a
cool.
minute since we have like a caliber player like Jalen Brown. I think the
Yeah,
last time was Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine. But I mean, give me your thoughts. Mac
yeah,
McClung,
man.
Osceola
I
Magic.
I'm really excited. I think two things, man. I wouldn't be surprised if right before we cut Admiral Schofield, thank you for your services. You've been great, but this is the last year you can even be a two-way. So it's like, and he's clearly not going to be a part of our future long term at all. Um, but I think he would be the one cut, and then we would bring Mac into a two-way spot so he can wear a Magic jersey.
I'll be
But
honest with you. That's grimy. Like that is super. That's a little sleazy, man.
oh, it is.
Cutting Admiral Schofield. Even if
I
it's
mean,
not
would you
Admiral,
cut Queen? Would you cut Harris? I mean, I'm
I
we're
wouldn't cut. Honestly, I think it's traveling. But
maybe, yeah.
here's my thing though. Traveling, he's the only one that has played.
He's played significant,
So
and
yes,
Fultz is injury prone, so it's like we kind of can't cut him. Like we're not going to cut. I mean, Kevon Harris hasn't played a second, but Admiral's just vibes. He's just there for vibes and swollenness. No
but out
disrespect
of
to Admiral.
Kevon's a hooper, man. He's a dog. Also, he just
It
hasn't been
is.
healthy.
I would personally cut Admiral. But at the same point, the league is trying to promote the G League more. That's why there's a bunch of G League players playing in like the Rising Stars competition. They're trying to level up that league, give it more attention. So I could also see the Magic, in the league kind of talking this over. Should we like because they could be having those discussions like, do we bring them up, do we not? The league could potentially be involved in those discussions a little bit, like what kind of optics do they want at the all-star break, or at the all-star events. And they could say, you know what, like let's highlight the amazing players we have in the G League and allow him to participate in a G League jersey and all that. I think I would prefer to have him in a Magic jersey than a G League jersey, to be quite honest with you. But we got the reigning dunk champion in a Magic jersey. It could be Orlandic, it could be Osceola. I don't know. But that's kind of exciting. Hopefully he brings us home another trophy. But gosh, if he brings home Osceola a trophy and it's not even
Listen,
it's not even Kia Center, that's gonna
listen,
be a weird look too.
listen. As an a Osceola resident,
So I don't want to disrespect you
listen,
guys.
us Kissimmons, we're hyped about Mac McClung representing the Osceola Magic. Like people are hyped about it. All
How
right, I'm
how much Osceola Magic have you watched this year, Anthony?
zero, but at my job, we got they stopped Osceola Magic. They stopped by the office. They dropped off this nice little box that has like all the schedules, right? And when people walk in, my clients they're taking them, right? It's empty, man. So
Great.
people there's a want, there's a need. I haven't gone to a game yet. I haven't watched the game yet. But
Have
I
you
got
seen
two
any
kids,
Mac
man.
McClung G League highlights?
What's that?
Have you seen any Mac McClung G League highlights
Absolutely.
of games?
Yes.
All
Oh,
right.
wait, of Mac McClung? No,
Of Mac McClung.
not one, not one. They've all been strictly Jay Howard. Every single one of them have been Jay Howard.
I,
Yeah,
I
I
think
got
it's great that he's in there. I think it's great that he's a part of our squad getting invited back. Either way, whether it's Osceola or Orlando, I think it's awesome. But I do hope it is with a Magic jersey. And again, thank you for your services, Admiral Schofield. You've been great. I think we have enough muscle elsewhere in case we get into a fight that can probably handle it. Mac McClung looks pretty swole for like a 6 foot person. Like let's go.
yeah. Honestly, from a business marketing perspective, it would make the most sense to assign him to a two-way, put him in a Magic uniform, and the Magic be on one of the biggest stages on that day, which is the slam dunk contest. It just
Dude,
it just is what it is.
he could have played 3 minutes tonight in garbage time versus the Spurs.
He could have. It's interesting because now you make me want to do some research in terms of, did he get any minutes in Philadelphia? Has he scored a point in the NBA? It's a lot of questions that I probably should have researched before this podcast. Now I feel unprepared.
I did the research once, and I think he's played like less than 20 NBA like minutes in like 3 seasons.
Yeah, that sounds accurate. But regardless, man, I'm rooting for him. This is what I want, right? I would love it if Mac McClung beats Jaylen Brown. That's what I would love. My personal perspective, I think that would be great TV. It would be a great underdog story. And I think that, if the Magic decide not to, it would be amazing to see Osceola like on the grand stage, marketing on another level, the most highlighted and respected G League team in all of G League. I think that'd be a great story that needs to be written.
I lied. Sorry. I lied. He's played more than 20 minutes in his seasons. He's played
You see,
he's had 4 seasons in the NBA with two-way positions, and he's played a total of 5 games, 2 with Philadelphia, 1 with the Lakers, 1 with
that's
Chicago, and 2 with Toronto. Very impressive stats with the Philadelphia in those 2 games. He played 20, averaged 20 minutes per game. He shot 36% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. He had a 55% efficiency rating, and he averaged 12 points a game, 12.5. 0 blocks, 0 steals, and 4.5 assists. Not bad. If we could get that for when we blow out the Knicks, and he gets 5 minutes of garbage time, and we blow out Oklahoma City in front of Shaq on TNT, and he gets some like good 5-6 minutes there, throws up a couple windmills in the middle of garbage time, like I'd be psyched on that.
Yeah, I think we need to do some research in terms of when the cutoff time is. When is the deadline? When do the Magic, if they made the decision to add Mac McClung, like, do they have to do it before that OKC game? Can they do it before All-Star break begins? Like, when is the cutoff time?
Could they do it 10 minutes before the game?
That would be.
I would just do it now, though. Is Admiral really going to be in the lineup at all? We're healthy.
I don't know. I've never liked the way that we've handled two ways. I feel like two ways should have been a more of a development position. I don't feel like we've truly utilized it in that way. It's always been, fillers.
We can go down that rabbit hole another day. I partially agree with you, and I also there was a couple people we attempted. It just didn't turn out well.
No, it didn't. It did. Well, anyways, on that note, All-Star break is the next big thing. We got the Bulls, OKC, the Knicks, and then a nice little break before we get into the second half of the season. Trade deadline was a dud, but we're expecting some great things happening for All-Star weekend, and hopefully after that we continue to stay healthy. And then, man, it's a straight pathway to the postseason. It's gonna be a lot of exciting basketball ahead of us. And man, it's buckle up time, man. And all the Kings said that we need to work out, have the players enjoy this little break, and then it's go time. So, Steven, man, I appreciate you joining me today and replacing Al. And man, we got to do it again.
Man, absolutely. I appreciate you having me. Al, thank you for going on a work trip so I can hang out with Ant for another hour in the middle of the week. That's always exciting. Magic are 6-4 out of the last 10. They're starting to roll. They're 4-1 out of the last 5. And this podcast is rolling just like the Magic, and I love that. Check out HQ, Orlando Magic HQ. We got tons of stuff going on right now for all you listeners. Shout out to our spaces guys. We had, Bryce and Stanley. They've been doing some big things. They have a Friday special with Kendra Kendra Douglas tomorrow. So tune into that, or the day you're listening to this on February 9th. Tune into that big time. That'll be fun. And then keep tapping into our podcasts and our live streams and let's go Magic. And appreciate you having me, man. This is a lot of fun. Man.
Good stuff. Good stuff. The show was presented by Bet Online. It's a wrap. We'll catch you guys next week.
For all the latest Magic news and updates, visit OrlandoMagicHQ.com and follow us on Instagram at Orlando Magic HQ and on Twitter at OMagicHQ. Also, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your favorite listening platform.